Discover the incredible journey of smallpox. How 300 million lives were forever changed. Emma Thompson stood in her small Midwestern town, where summer fairs and Friday night football games once filled the streets with laughter. The sweet scent of cherry pie wafted through the air, weaving a comforting tapestry of familiarity. But now, horror had gripped their close-knit community. Smallpox outbreaks had surged, leaving devastation in their wake. Families mourned losses, hearts shattered. Once friendly neighbors eyed each other with suspicion. Fear consumed them, and the warmth was quickly replaced with cold shoulders. Emma's father, Dr. Thompson, was a beacon of hope in this turmoil. His dedication to healing was known far and wide. She watched as he sank deeper into anguish, faced with parents whose fearful gazes questioned everything he stood for. Despite his commitment to science, Emma saw the way doubt stole his voice. She felt the ache in her chest, an unmistakable burden of responsibility resting heavily on her young shoulders. "People need to understand," Emma said one evening, her voice trembling. "Vaccination is our best hope." But each encounter only fueled the fires of anger. Townsfolk leaned closer to their fears than reason, and whispered accusations filled the air like poison. Tears threatened to spill from Emma's eyes as she witnessed friendships souring, family bonds fraying. How had it come to this? Desperate for change, Emma organized a village-wide vaccination clinic, her heart racing at the thought of reigniting the spirit of unity their town was known for. What if it fell apart? As the day approached, she could hardly sleep. Picturing the empty chairs at the clinic gnawed at her, and she pushed those thoughts aside. When the people arrived, she'd be ready. But that day, fewer than half the expected neighbors showed up. Emma stood beside her father, the trust that once seemed unshakable crumbling before them. Shouts echoed through the hall, fears spilling over like broken glass. "You don't care about us," a young father roared, betrayal etched across his face. Emma could hear the faint whispers of the past, the shared laughter that once connected them all. Would they shatter? Before despair could take hold again, an elderly neighbor approached Emma, her voice steady and warm amidst the chaos. "I remember the fear during the polio vaccine," the whispers. "But look at our children now," she said, a soft smile breaking across her face. That spark of hope ignited something in Emma. She realized shared struggles could bring unity. The scene shifted to a pivotal town hall meeting. Emma stood as hearts drummed against frightened chests. Community members surged with questions, pushing back against her truths. Accusations laced with long-buried resentments rippling through the crowd. "What do you know about sacrifice?" shouted a voice, laced with bitterness. Emma's voice trembled as she responded. "I know we can heal together." As the tension thickened, the mayor stepped forward. Silence fell, and every eye in the room locked onto Emma. The air crackled with anticipation. Will you unify us or be silenced? A question that could change everything hung in the air, echoing around them. Emma felt the weight of the moment, her heart racing, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Would she be the voice of hope or succumb to the fear threatening to tear them apart? Emma took a deep breath, steadying herself as she faced the crowd. The looks of uncertainty in their eyes pierced her heart. This was her moment, and she couldn't let it slip away. "I may not know all your struggles," she began, her voice rising slightly above the hushed whispers. "But I know you want to keep your families safe. I want that too." She could feel the energy of the room shifting, a subtle tension as the might of her words fought against overwhelming doubt. Sensing the stirrings of discontent, Emma forged ahead. "What I see every day is real," she said, her voice more passionate. "We're fighting something invisible. It does not care about our fears or our beliefs. It destroys lives, even the lives of children." She scanned the room, her gaze landing on those who had once looked at her with kindness. She ached to rekindle that trust. The mayor's expression softened. "You're asking them to take a leap of faith, Emma. It's not easy when fear feels so real." He stepped back, letting her lead the discussion. Emma nodded, adrenaline pulsing through her. "Let me show you the truth. Come with me. Let us not just talk about fear. Let us face it." And just like that, Hope flickered like flames ignited by a strong wind. Outside, the clinic was a modest building, but inside was a hub of potential healing, a testament to those who had come before. Emma led the townsfolk through the door, the sounds fading behind them. "This is where healing begins," Emma gestured. She walked them through the process of vaccination, explaining every step, every precaution. As she laid out the scientific basis behind it, she saw a few nodding heads, their curiosity piqued. Just a glimmer, but it was enough to propel her forward. "Look," she said, pointing to an empty vaccination chair. "Sitting here isn't so scary. It's an act of courage." Her voice softened. "It's saying I care about my neighbors, my family. It's saying we're stronger together." A murmur rolled through the group. Among them, a mother took a tentative step toward the chair, hesitating. Emma felt her heart swell. Could this be the turning point? But it was also a risk. What if she backed away in fear? Encouraged, Emma turned to her. "You can do this. You're brave. Look at all the lives you're protecting." The mother nodded, determination shining through her uncertainty. Emma held her breath, capturing the moment in her mind like a photograph, a symbol of hope ignited through faith. The mother sat down, and as the nurse approached, the crowd collectively exhaled. A sense of relief flooded the room as others followed suit. Emma felt a shift. Conversations began, a once-absent camaraderie creeping back into their interactions. They reminisced about shared experiences, the joy of summer fairs, the thrill of Friday night lights, the laughter that once connected them. Emma smiled amid the chaos, her heart hammering with renewed hope. But just as she thought things were looking brighter, a voice from behind her called out, "You think this will fix everything? Trust isn't built in a day." Emma turned slowly, her heart sinking again. In that moment, she realized it wasn't just about the vaccine. It was about rebuilding trust, an arduous journey with no clear end. "Then let us start building," she replied, her voice strong but laced with vulnerability. "Let us do it together." As they stood in the growing warmth of the clinic, sharing stories, laughing, and bravely facing their fears, Emma could feel the bonds starting to stitch together, tighter than before. But the road ahead was still fraught with uncertainty. Not everyone was ready to join the journey. When a piercing scream shattered the chatter, fear forced its way back into the room, threatening to unravel their hard-won unity. Emma's breath caught in her throat. What had just happened? And who was in danger this time? The crowd froze, tension wrapping around them like a familiar blanket of dread. Emma turned toward the source of the scream, heart pounding in her chest. A girl stood at the back, wildly clutching her arm. Tears streamed down her face as she desperately pointed to something near the entrance. "What's wrong? What happened?" Emma called out, her voice piercing the thick air of confusion. People shifted uneasily, some backing away, their earlier courage momentarily crushed by fear. Emma's mind raced. Was it an accident? Had someone been hurt? Then she saw it, a young boy, no older than 7, lying on the ground just outside the clinic. He was clutching his stomach, his eyes wide with terror. Emma's heart sank. This was a nightmare she could never have anticipated. "Stay here," she instructed the group as she dashed toward the boy, her shoes slapping against the tiles, echoing in the tense silence. Kneeling beside him, she could see the pain etched on his face. "Hey, buddy, what is going on? Can you tell me where it hurts?" "Mom, I don't feel good," he cried, his voice trembling. Emma's instincts kicked in. She turned her head to the nurse, giving a swift nod. "Get the doctor. Now." The nurse sprinted away, and Emma focused on the boy. "Can you take deep breaths for me?" She demonstrated, inhaling slowly, wishing to impart calmness in what felt like a whirlwind. "You're going to be all right. We're here to help you." The boy's mother rushed in, panic coloring her normally gentle features. "Evan, what happened?" "I don't know, Mom. My tummy." He curled into himself, drawing his knees to his chest, as if trying to shield himself from the world. Emma's stomach nodded in sympathy. She had been here before, seeing families torn apart by fear, helpless innocence slipping through the cracks of uncertainty. "It's okay. Promise. You're safe now," she said softly to the boy, But inside, uncertainty clawed at her. Was this the moment when everything they had just built would come crashing down? Just then, the nurse returned with the doctor, who was calm but swift in his actions. He examined the boy, murmuring softly to both Evan and his mother, trying to ease their worries. Emma remained close, watching with a mix of anxiety and hope. The doctor's voice cut through the tension. It looks like he's just having a rough stomach ache, but we'll run tests to be sure. We need to monitor him, and I'd like to keep him here for observation. Can you help me with that? Evan's mother nodded, her face pale, but the initial panic began to fade as she held her son close. Emma could feel the room slowly embracing a soft breath of relief. But then another voice broke through loud, trembling with disbelief. "This is your fault," shouted a man from the back, his finger pointing accusingly at Emma. "You think you can play doctor? Look what you've done." The room shifted again, a ripple of whispers sparking a wave of doubt. Emma felt her heart begin to sink once more. It was the same cycle: the fight against fear, the need for trust. She stood up, adrenaline rushing, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding her. "None of this is easy," Emma said firmly, addressing the crowd again. "But we must remember we are all here, trying to care for each other. One setback doesn't take away from our efforts to heal. We need to be stronger together." Heads nodded slowly, but uncertainty lingered. She looked intently around the room, searching for faces she could reach. "Evan's here because we care. Remember that. Let us show him and each other that love and courage beat fear every time." As the room began to settle, Emma felt a flicker of hope return. But she sensed the gravity of this moment weighed heavily. The fear that had retreated for a moment now loomed larger. Could she hold everyone together? Could she combat this rising tide of panic once and for all? With Evan and his mother in her heart, Emma knew this was just the beginning of a much greater battle. And she couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was brewing on the horizon. What else was waiting to test them, and would they be ready? Emma took a breath, pulling herself up straighter. The whispers in the crowd seemed to pulse, rising and falling like the tide, and she knew she had to command the room. Her heart raced, but she wasn't about to back down. There was something more at stake than just this moment. It was the entire resolve of the community. "Listen to me," she said, louder this time, projecting her voice to carry beyond the uncertainty. "Evan is our priority right now. We need to prioritize caring for him, not lashing out at each other. That only separates us and creates more fear." Evan's mother was clutching him, her eyes wide and brimming with tears. Emma felt a wave of empathy wash over her. She could only imagine the panic this mother had experienced just moments ago. Emma knelt closer, voice softening as she said, "He's doing okay. Really, the doctor knows what he's doing." The man who accused her glared. "But how can we trust you? How can we trust any of this?" His words hung heavy in the air, and Emma felt a swell of anger rise within her, battling with her determination to maintain calm. "Because we have to trust each other," she replied, conviction fueling her resolve. "Look around. We are all gathered here as a community. We're all in this together. The moment we let fear take over is the moment we lose everything we've worked so hard for. Evan needs us now, not just as individuals but as a united group." Emma turned her gaze to the faces she saw, each marked by worry, but some were beginning to soften. She spotted a father in the back, shifting on his feet. "You know what it's like to be scared when your child is hurting," she said gently. "We can't let that fear control us. Let us stand together for Evan." There was a moment of stillness, then a ripple of murmurs traveled through the crowd. Emma felt a small glimmer of hope. If they could find a way to congregate, they could weather this storm. The doctor returned from the inner clinic, a serious look on his face. "Evan seems stable but needs more observation. He's frightened, and I'd like to start him on an 4 for hydration. We need to keep him calm." As he spoke, the room shifted again. The parents of other children, the nurses, and the onlookers were beginning to focus. Emma saw them leaning in closer, giving her energy a boost. "Does anyone have games or toys we can distract him with?" Emma called out. "Something to make him smile?" Immediately, a woman stepped forward. "I have a stuffed bear in my car." Another man chimed in, "I have a deck of cards." Kids love that. The chatter was gaining momentum. Parents began rummaging through bags, looking for small comforts. A small laugh broke through the growing tension, and Emma felt warmth fill the space. She turned back to Evan, still curled against his mother. "Look at that. They're all coming to help you." "Evan," she said brightly, "you're not alone in this." As the bear and cards appeared, the room vibrated with a renewed sense of purpose. Even the man who had shouted earlier looked slightly abashed, the fight draining from him as he quietly joined the search for items to cheer Evan. But then, just as hope began to fill the air, the lights flickered ominously and then went out. A sharp gasp escaped from the crowd. Emma squinted through the darkness, feeling a tightening grip of anxiety return. The echo of footsteps grew louder, and she saw the shadows shift. "What's happening? Is it the power?" someone whispered. Panic began creeping in again, and Emma realized that protecting Evan wasn't the only battle she faced. There was a deeper darkness threatening to swallow them whole. Taking a deep breath, she called out, "Stay calm. Let us keep the lights on each other, focus on what we can control." But she couldn't dismiss the nagging thought that something more sinister was unfolding. What had just pulled them into a greater threat? And could they truly remain united when darkness loomed over them? Emma pushed back against the suffocating darkness, determined not to let panic take hold. She couldn't see 5 feet in front of her, but she could hear the trembling voices breaking through the silence, echoing with uncertainty. It felt as if the room had drawn a collective breath, waiting. "Stay together," Emma called again, straining to keep her voice steady. "We need to stay close." The murmurs transformed into a flutter of movement. She caught snippets of conversations, parents reassuring kids, others checking on their own. It grounded her to know that they were still present, still here for each other. Moments later, a flickering glow suddenly broke the shadows as a few cell phones sprang to life, casting thin beams of light. Emma's heart surged at the sight. It wasn't much, but it was enough to provide comfort. She squinted through the dim light, looking for Evan. He was still nestled against his mom, who was now singing softly, a soothing lullaby drifting through the chaos. Emma edged closer, the soft, tired rhythm of the woman's voice folding over her like a blanket. "That's it," she murmured to herself, inspired. "Keep that light of hope alive." The doctor joined them, his phone's light illuminating his concerned face. "We have to move Evan to a different room," he said, urgency creeping into his tone. "The generator should kick in soon, but we can't wait." Emma's stomach nodded at the thought of moving him. "Is that really safe? What if something happens?" "We can't risk him being alone without proper care," he replied firmly. Her mind raced. She could hear the worried crowd, feeling the collective energy. But the noise of doubt began drowning her out. "No, we can't let fear dictate our actions." "All right," she nodded, more to herself than anyone else. "Let us help him." As the doctor guided them through the hallway, Emma instinctively took the lead, her silhouette highlighted by phone lights behind her. She felt every weighty step, her heart pounding in time with Evan's mother, who kept murmuring reassurances to her son. The atmosphere shifted slowly. Parents started to feel their own anxieties ease as they followed Emma's lead. They were a band now, moving with purpose amidst the uncertainty. In a brief moment of tranquility, Emma felt a warmth surge through her. "We can do this," she whispered, a new determination sparking inside her. They reached a new room, the doctor directing them quickly to an exam table. "Let us get him settled," he instructed, while Emma and Evan's mother carefully lifted him onto the bed. Suddenly, Emma fixated on the shadows sliding across the walls. The flickering light reflected every quiver of doubt she had. What if she started but stopped herself? There was no space for what ifs now. As the doctor expertly set to work, murmurs of encouragement began to trail off. Emma tried to focus on Evan's face. "Hey buddy, you're doing so great. Everyone's here for you," she said, injecting every ounce of confidence into her voice. "Evan?" A voice pierced through the tension. A nurse stepping into the room, her eyes scanning the faces, her presence commanding without being overbearing. "I'm here to help you. We're all in this together." Just then, the generator roared to life, lights spilling through the room and illuminating the faces around them. Eyes widened, breaths collectively caught. But with this new light came clarity, revealing the tension etched on the faces of the crowd, still waiting outside. Fear still hovered, palpable yet unspoken. While relief washed over them like a wave, Emma knew they had to be prepared. This moment of respite wouldn't last. "Get ready," she urged. Meeting their gaze, "We have to make sure this doesn't happen again." The air crackled with the adrenaline of their shared focus. What they didn't know, the real battle was just beginning. Would they be strong enough to face it together, or would the shadows of doubt pull them apart once more? The room felt alive with a new energy. The lights bathed everything in a soft glow, revealing anxious faces and a whirlwind of emotions. With the doctor tending to Evan, Emma glanced around, noticing the tension easing just a bit among the parents. Small murmurs began to swell like a tide, people talking, sharing their fears, and hoping for better days ahead. But Emma could sense that not all fears could be quelled. A weight still hung in the air, hovering just over their heads. She could feel the collective worry for their children, the unknowns that loomed outside the fragile bubble of safety they had formed. Each flicker of the lights seemed to echo those unspoken thoughts. "Stay strong, everyone," she encouraged, her voice finding new strength. "Evan's going to be okay, and so will we." The nurse moved briskly around the room, gathering supplies and preparing for whatever came next. Emma caught a glimpse of Evan. His expression was both serene and worried, the kind of gaze that could break your heart. She reached out, brushing back his hair, trying to keep the warmth of hope alive in the young boy, who was fighting so hard. "Just focus on that lullaby, Evan," she whispered, letting the words linger between them. Evan's mother leaned closer, her face twisted in concentration. "He's so brave," she murmured, a flicker of determination lighting her eyes. In this fragile moment, they were connected, bound by the shared experience of fear and love. With every passing second, the atmosphere intensified. Emma felt it in her bones, the looming question of how long they could hang on to their little slices of hope. That doubt was the true darkness, creeping into the corners of her mind. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside the room, slicing through the atmosphere of tentative calm. Emma jerked her head in the direction of the sound, her heart skipping a beat. She met the eyes of the nurse, who paused, searching to assess the situation without letting panic spill over. "What was that?" Someone behind Emma whispered, the words laced with trepidation. "I don't know," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady, but the tremor it carried betrayed her. One of the other parents stood, pulse racing. "I'll check it out," he declared, his bravado cracking just a bit. He pushed through the door and soon disappeared down the hallway. The room fell into a tense silence, every ear tuned to the sounds beyond. Minutes felt like hours as everyone waited for confirmation. Was it a threat, a simple mistake, or something more ominous? The air thickened with dread, emotions melting into anxiety. What if it's something bad? Evan's mother hastened to Emma, her face pale. "What if we're not safe here?" Emma felt her own heart race with the question. She could hear the whispers of fear growing louder. Doubts that she had tucked away surged back. It was a struggle to keep her balance in this storm of emotions. "We'll figure it out. We must focus on Evan. Everything outside, it can't touch him right now." But as she spoke, a thought crept in. What happens if we lose control? That flicker of doubt only expanded alongside the fears. Soon, the parent who had left to investigate returned, his face drawn. "It's chaos in the hallway. Things are getting worse," he said, his voice tight with panic. The room erupted in a chorus of worried voices, doubts spilling over like cups filled to the brim. Emma surveyed the gathering crowd, the rising fear threatening to overtake them. "I need you all to help me," she called out, her voice breaking through the rising tide. "We need to stay focused, stay united." But she could feel that determination starting to waver. They were no longer just helping Evan. They were all on the brink of something much larger. The wave of uncertainty crashed down around them, leaving Emma wondering how she could reignite that spark of unity. She had just taken a step back towards control, but now, the goal had shifted. How do you protect what you can't see? And in that moment of doubt and uncertainty, she realized there was only one thing to do. We need to find a way out, Emma said in a low voice, the urgency clear in her tone. What lay beyond those walls could turn their fight into a disaster, and the stakes had never felt higher. Would they unite to save their children, or would fear end their fragile coalition for good? Emma's heart raced as whispers of uncertainty echoed around the room. Everyone's eyes darted nervously, scanning the dim corners as if threats might emerge from the shadows. She could feel the walls pushing in, suffocating their hope, and she fought against it with every ounce of strength she had. Okay, listen up, Emma said, her voice firm as she turned towards the parents. We need a plan. If things are getting worse out there, we can't stay here waiting for answers. We need to take action. There was a silence, a brief pause as they processed her words, uncertainty hanging thick in the air. Evan's mother nodded, her expression shifting from fear to determination. What do you suggest? Emma glanced around, feeling the weight of their collective gaze. She had no roadmap, but instinct kicked in. We can't just rush out there. We need to look for the safest route and make sure we stay together. We can't let fear divide us. A woman with dark circles under her eyes spoke up. But what about our kids? We can't leave them behind. Her voice cracked, emotions bubbling just beneath the surface. And you think we can protect them if we stay frozen here? Emma countered, trying to keep her tone calm even as panic threatened to creep in. We can't fight for them from a place of fear. As her words settled, the room shifted. She could see parents nodding, weighing their options against the pulse of dread that seeped through the walls. They were all scared, but now they were leaning towards resolve, the idea of safety fueling their determination. Okay, let us think this through, Evan's mother said, taking a deep breath. We need to gather whatever supplies we can. Flashlights, anything that can help us see in case the lights go out. We won't be taken by surprise. Nods spread through the group like a gust of wind. Parent after parent stood, their feet carrying them to corners of the room and toward the small cabinets lining the walls, pulling out anything useful. Emma joined them, grabbing a few flashlights and batteries, her hands shaking with adrenaline. Suddenly, a loud bang pierced the chaotic movement, resonating like a gunshot. Everyone froze. Emma's breath hitched in her throat. She exchanged fearful glances with the others. What was that? Someone dared to ask, their voice barely a whisper. Could it be? But before Emma could finish, a nurse dashed in, panic etched across her face. You've got to come with me. There's a way to the back exit, but we have to hurry. Emma's heart raced as she looked towards Evan. He was still sleeping, unaware of the chaos and fear that surrounded him. I'll go where you lead, but we can't leave him alone. Not yet. I'll stay with him, a strong-voiced mother said. You go. We'll keep the door open for you. Emma hesitated, torn between the urgency of escape and the instinct to protect. But there was no time for indecision. She nodded, adrenaline surging. Okay, let us move. They filed through the door, Emma leading the way, her heart thundering as they stepped into the chaotic hallway. Relief washed over her briefly as she spotted a flickering light down the corridor. But it was mixed with the tension of knowing that each step could lead them deeper into uncertainty. Stay close, she called back over her shoulder, her pulse echoing in her ears. They might be moving towards safety, but every instinct told her they were entering a storm of unknown dangers as they reached the end of the hall. The atmosphere shifted, heavy with the scent of smoke and something else, something metallic. It hit her like a ton of bricks. Fear wasn't just a feeling. It was an impending reality. Emma caught a glimpse of something shifting ahead. What is that? She whispered, dread creeping back into her mind as they paused. In that moment, just beyond the corner, she saw shadows shifting. And with that, she couldn't shake the feeling that their fight for safety had only just begun. Would they make it out of this nightmare together? Or would they fall apart when faced with the unimaginable? Emma held her breath, muscles tensed. It felt surreal, as if time had decided to stretch into infinity. The shadows ahead flickered like ghosts, teasing her imagination with every possible horrific scenario. They moved just beyond the flickering light, too fast to be alone, too silent for comfort. "Everyone, stay behind me," she urged, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. She stepped forward, heart hammering in her chest, every instinct screaming at her to turn back, to take shelter. But there was no safety here. With each step, the smell of smoke thickened. Emma's mind raced. What had happened? Were they in the middle of a fire? Or was it something worse? The questions piled up, smothering her with anticipation. The flickering light cast silhouettes, creating shapes that seemed otherworldly. "Hello?" she called out, her voice quaking. The corridor felt alive, vibrating with tension. At her side, several parents clung together, eyes wide, breaths shallow. They were searching her face for reassurance, but she was grappling with her own uncertainty. Then she saw it clearly, a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a man, disheveled and disoriented, his clothes smeared with mud and darkness. He stumbled towards them like a lost soul. Emma instinctively stepped back, but he raised a hand, palm forward. "Please, help me." His voice cracked, desperation lacing every word. "The building, it's not safe." "What do you mean?" a father shouted, his protective instincts rising to the surface. "What happened? There are things out there." The man's eyes darted around, wild and frantic. "They're at the front. We have to get out now." Emma's heart plummeted. She could sense the change in the air, an unseen weight pressing down on them. "What things?" She pressed, trying to maintain some semblance of control. He hesitated, glancing back into the darkness with a fear that sent chills down Emma's spine. "I can't explain. Just run." He gestured them further down the corridor. "There's another exit down this way." The urgency in his tone ignited something within Emma. It was as if fire rekindled the flickering hope in her heart. "We have to go. Now." She motioned for everyone to follow, adrenaline fueling her limbs as they moved. The shadows seemed to close in around them, looming larger with every step. Emma's mind raced. Who was this man? What dangers awaited if they dared continue? And would Evan still be safely sheltered with the others, waiting for her to return? They reached a door at the end of the corridor, barely visible through the thickening smoke. It was ajar, dangling precariously, as though the escape route itself was clinging to its last breath. Emma pushed against it, heart pounding, praying for a way out. But as the door creaked open wider, a loud rumble echoed from behind them. The air shifted, and Emma turned, dread coiling deep in her stomach. The sound was not just the building settling or a figment of her imagination. It was something else, something alive and threatening, like a beast disturbed by their presence. "Go," she shouted, pushing everyone ahead of her as the dark promise of danger loomed in the corridor behind them. The first parent rushed through the door, followed closely by the others. Emma glanced back, tears welling in her eyes as she felt the looming threat grow, finally understanding that they were not just fighting for their safety but for the very lives of their children too. But just as she turned, the flickering lights above extinguished entirely. Silence swallowed the hallway, and in the darkness, their pathways diverged. Emma's heart dropped. She couldn't see. She couldn't hear. Panic began to claw at her as she shouted, "Wait! Don't leave without me!" Everything was terrifying and uncertain. What lay ahead? Would they find their way out? Or was this a battle they weren't ready to fight? Emma braced herself for whatever came next, knowing she had to face the fear head-on. In that moment, she felt the uncertainty shift. They were more than a group in a crisis. They were a family now, bound by the hope of survival. But the question gnawed at her. Would that bond be enough against the horrors lurking just beyond? Together as a family. Would they make it through the darkness, or would it consume them? Emma stood frozen, the darkness wrapping around her like a cold blanket. She strained her ears, hoping to catch any sounds of her group. Her heart raced as anxiety twisted in her stomach. Had they really left without her? Taking a step back, she felt the door frame behind her give slightly, adding to her unease. Should she shout again? She opened her mouth but swallowed the words when she heard a faint whisper. The voice was soft, almost ghostly, coming from somewhere nearby. Emma? It was Evan. Relief flooded her, yet it mixed with fresh terror. He was here, but where was here? Evan, I'm coming, she called out, her voice a beacon in the suffocating darkness. She felt her way back to the door, reaching for the cool metal handle, hoping it would guide her to him with trembling hands. She turned the knob and pulled the door open wider, the dim light spilling into the corridor. Shadows danced along the walls, teasing her once more. She steadied her breath and stepped into the hall. Evan, she yelled again. The tightness in her chest eased slightly as she saw a flicker of movement ahead. I'm right here. Then, as she moved forward, she noticed a figure standing in the far corner, trembling. That familiar silhouette sent jolts of fear and relief coursing through her. It was him. Mom! Evan's voice broke, and Emma rushed toward him, wrapping him in a desperate embrace. She could feel his small body shaking against hers. Her heart ached to think of how scared he must be. Are you okay? We need to get out of here, she whispered, trying to sound calm. The figures in the shadows seemed more threatening now, lurking just beyond their safety. I thought you wouldn't come back, he said, his voice cracking. The innocence in his tone twisted Emma's heart. Would she ever get used to feeling like both protector and parent? Never, Evan. I'll always come back for you. Just hold my hand, she urged, lacing her fingers with his and glancing around the hall, desperate to find a way through the darkness. They could see light flickering at the end, but everything felt uncertain, each move fraught with peril. Suddenly, there was another rumble, louder this time, shaking the walls. Hurry! We have to go! Emma shouted, pulling Evan closer. They dashed down the corridor hand in hand, the light ahead growing stronger but still flickering ominously. With every step, the darkness seemed to close in around them, clawing for their heels as the air became heavy with smoke. Just as they reached the end of the light, a loud crash reverberated behind them. Emma turned, panic surging in her veins. The other parents had been ahead. Had they made it? Where is everyone? She whispered, fear clutching at her throat. At the threshold, Emma hesitated, torn between the safety just beyond the final door and the nagging worry of leaving the others behind. She could feel Evan tugging at her hand, his urgency pulling her closer to safety. Mom, we have to go, he cried, looking up at her with wide eyes filled with trust and fear. But what if the others were still in danger? What if they needed her? It was a choice, a painful weight pressing her heart. Emma turned back once more, taking in the dark, swirling shadows that had consumed the corridor, a litter of uncertainty lurking just out of eyesight. She yearned to be there for everyone, but it dawned on her that she couldn't help anyone if they didn't make it out first. Okay, let us go, she exclaimed, determination fueling her resolve. With Evan's small hand in hers, she pushed through the door and into the light, the fears of the unknown colliding with the hope of freedom. Yet, as they crossed the threshold, the sound of distant screams pierced the air. Emma's heart sank once more. They had escaped the dark hall, but the danger still hung thick in the air. Mom, what is happening? Evan's voice trembled, a mixture of confusion and worry. Emma squeezed his hand, preparing for whatever lay ahead. I don't know, sweetheart, but we're together. We'll figure it out. But would they truly be safe? What awaited them just outside the door? Freedom or the ultimate threat? Emma's heart raced again, the grip of fear still wrapping around her, holding her close. As they moved forward, she realized this was just the beginning. In a heartbeat, everything could change. What terrors awaited them in the new light? The sunlight poured over Emma and Evan as they emerged from the darkened corridor into the chaos outside. The once familiar streets of their town were now filled with confusion. People ran in all directions, some shouting for help, while others clung to their loved ones like lifelines. The air smelled of smoke and fear, a choking reminder of the storm they had just escaped. Stay close, Emma said, gripping Evan's hand tightly. He nodded, determination in his wide eyes aligning with hers. Together, they stepped into the fray, hearts pumping with adrenaline. The sounds of chaos wrapped around them: siren wails, frantic voices, the unmistakable sound of a community in distress. "Mom, what do we do?" Evan asked, lifting his small hand to shield his eyes from the light that now felt overwhelmingly bright after the darkness they had just left. Emma took a deep breath, steadying her racing thoughts. "We find the others. We help who we can," she replied, her voice firm yet comforting. There was no time for doubt. Action was their only option. "Look," Evan pointed towards a cluster of parents gathered near the entrance of the clinic, their worried faces a reflection of the unease in Emma's heart. Rushing forward, they reached the crowd who had now formed a makeshift assembly, checking in on each other, ensuring no one was left behind. The feeling of unity started to rekindle, lifting Emma's spirit just slightly. "Is everyone okay?" she called out, her gaze scanning familiar faces. Relief washed over her when she spotted Evan's mother, frantically shaking her head. "They're saying there's been an explosion at the main hospital. Everyone needs help." A surge of determination coursed through Emma. "We can't lose hope. Let us organize everyone," she commanded, her heart pounding in time with the chaos around her. "Who has supplies? Who can make phone calls? We need to work together." Her words hit the air, bold and resolute. As the group began to regroup, the doubts that once threatened Emma's resolve melted away like the morning fog. People began pooling resources, gathering medical supplies, blankets, and any willing hands to help the injured. Conversations sparked, laughter and tears mingled, and strength flowed like a current among them. They were no longer just individuals, they were a community once again. Evan's eyes brightened. "See, Mom? We're all helping. We'll keep everyone safe." With each passing moment, Emma felt the bonds of trust silently weaving through their shared mission, warming her heart. It was what she had hoped for all along. A return to the love and closeness that smallpox had threatened to pull apart. But as they organized, something beyond the crowd caught Emma's eye. In the distance, smoke billowed and sirens blared, the sound calling like a siren song. Her heart sank. The danger wasn't over yet. "Everyone." Emma took a deep breath to rally her voice, her heart racing again. "It's time to be brave. We're facing this challenge together. Let us move together." With a chorus of agreement, the group surged forward, united by hope and a shared purpose. The distance from the clinic to the explosion felt like a mile despite their resolution. But Emma's heart surged as they lay out contingency plans, and unity spread amongst them. Finally, they reached the scene, a testament to the catastrophe, but instead, they found bravery echoed in every corner. Nurses worked tirelessly on victims, parents banding together, pouring their love into those who were hurt. Emma felt a swell of pride, seeing neighbors stepping up, becoming heroes in the face of turmoil as Emma witnessed the humanity surrounding her. The trust they had built ignited within her heart. In every handshake, every laughter in the face of grief, she understood that they could not erase the past, but they could build their future stronger than ever before. There would be days of healing ahead, of lessons learned, and fear fought against, but today marked a turning point. As Evan and Emma worked side by side, she couldn't help but feel hope radiating through the town, stitched together by the resilience of its people. Finally, in the quiet moments earlier, amidst the chaos, Emma glanced at Evan. He looked up, his small face showing bravery. "See, Mom? We're strong together." And with an overwhelming warmth, she realized they really were. This was the moment she had fought for, the moment when fear was vanquished and love emerged victorious. They had faced the darkness together, and now they would step into the light, a community reborn, their spirits interwoven, with hope leading the way. "What if something comes up again?" Evan asked, but Emma squeezed his hand tightly. "We'll handle it. Together, no matter what." Deep down inside, she felt it. This was just the beginning. The storm had passed, but they were ready for whatever lay ahead. Stronger, united, and forever changed. And, dear reader, if you found this journey inspiring, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like to feed the algorithm and help our story reach others. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the power of supporting our community.